I was 29 years old, 3 weeks away from my wedding, when I watched a video that changed everything. What I did next was simple. What followed was anything but. Her name was Ava. 27 years old, worked in pharmaceutical sales, and came from what I had always believed was a grounded, conservative family. We had been together for 4 years and engaged for 18 months. I thought I understood who she was. I was wrong. Ava's grandmother, Margaret, had raised her after her parents separated when she was young. Margaret was deeply religious, Southern Baptist through and through. Church 3 times a week, the kind of faith that shaped every corner of her life. She was also quietly wealthy. Old money, built by her late husband's business, handled with discretion and dignity. When Ava and I got engaged, Margaret offered to pay for our entire wedding. Not help, pay for all of it. $85,000 covering the venue, catering, flowers, photography, everything. Ava was thrilled beyond words. I was grateful, though honestly I would have been perfectly content with something smaller. Margaret had 2 conditions. The ceremony had to take place in a church, and we both had to attend premarital counseling with her pastor. I had no objection to either. Whatever made the woman happy, and she was paying for everything, seemed reasonable to me. The Bachelorette trip was the weekend before everything fell apart. Ava flew out on Thursday with her maid of honor Tiffany, 2 other bridesmaids, and her cousin Haley. She texted me when the plane landed. Sent some photos from dinner that night. Told me she loved me. Everything felt completely normal. I had no reason to think twice about any of it. Saturday night I was at my apartment with my best friend Jake. We were playing video games, completely relaxed, not a thought in the world. Around 11 o'clock my phone buzzed with an Instagram notification. Someone had tagged me in a post from an account I didn't recognize. I clicked it out of habit. It was a nightclub's promotional page, the kind of account that posts party highlights to pull in a weekend crowd. The caption said something like, "Saturday nights never disappoint," with a string of hashtags underneath. I almost scrolled past it. Then I saw her. Ava was in the video. She was giving a lap dance to a man at a VIP table. Grinding on him, his hands on her hips, her dress riding up while she laughed like she was having the time of her life. Then she moved to another man at the same table and gave him the exact same treatment. The same friends from her dinner photos were clearly visible in the background, cheering and filming on their phones. I recognized them instantly. I watched the video 10 times straight. I counted. Jake saw my face go pale and asked what was wrong. I turned the screen toward him. He stared at it without saying a word for almost a full minute. Then he said, "That's definitely her." It was. She was wearing the same dress she had sent me a photo of earlier that evening. At one point, one of the men slipped what looked like cash into her dress. She took it without breaking stride and kept dancing. Then a second man did the same. She accepted that too and kept going. I did not call her. I did not send a single text or leave a voicemail. I took a screenshot of the video, opened my messages, and forwarded it to Margaret. I typed one sentence, "I thought you should see this before you finalize the flower deposit tomorrow." Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. I woke up Sunday morning to complete chaos. 43 missed calls. 89 text messages. Voicemails from Ava, from Tiffany, from her mother, from her sister, from numbers I didn't even recognize. The wedding had already been cancelled. Margaret had apparently called Ava at 2 in the morning. The conversation, from what I pieced together, was not a gentle one. Then Margaret had started working through the vendor list. The venue. The caterer. The florist. The photographer. One by one she called each of them and cancelled every booking. By sunrise, a wedding that had taken 18 months to build was completely dismantled. Ava's first text to me read, "What did you do?" Not, "I'm sorry." Not, "I can explain." Just immediate accusation. As if the problem was not what she had done but the fact that someone had found out. Her follow-up messages ran the full range from furious to desperate to threatening. She said I had destroyed her life. She said Margaret had cut her off entirely. She said she would never forgive me for what I had done. I found that interesting, since I had not done anything that required forgiveness. I forwarded a video. That was it. Her mother called me a vindictive little man. Tiffany called me toxic for not giving Ava a chance to explain herself. I kept coming back to the same question, explain what, exactly? I had watched the video over and over. I knew what I had seen. Multiple men, not one moment of poor judgment, two separate men with cash going into her dress while she worked the table like this was entertainment to her. She never apologized. Not once. In 43 calls and 89 messages, through all the anger and all the desperation, not a single "I'm sorry" appeared. There was no acknowledgement that she had done something wrong. Just rage at being caught, and fury at the consequences that followed. Margaret called me herself. She told me she was deeply sorry for what I was going through and that she had raised Ava better than this. She told me the wedding deposits were non-refundable and that she was looking at losing close to $40,000. Then she said she would rather lose every cent of it than watch me marry someone who had no respect for marriage before it had even begun. I thanked her. I meant it. That woman had more integrity than her entire family put together. I contacted a jeweler about reselling the engagement ring. I had bought it with my own money, and I wanted to recover what I could. They offered me about 60% of what I paid. Not great, but something. The apartment lease was in my name. Ava had been staying with Tiffany since she got back. She came by one afternoon while I was out and used her key to collect some of her belongings. When I got home, I noticed she had taken more than she should have. My gaming console was missing. I sent her a text telling her she had 24 hours to return it before I reported it stolen. She dropped it off the following morning without a word. About 5 days after everything collapsed, she showed up at my door unannounced. I had not yet changed the locks, which was my mistake. She still had her key and let herself in while I was working from home. She sat down on the couch like she still lived there and told me I had no right to blow up her life without giving her a chance to speak. I told her that from where I was standing, she had made her own choices, and I had simply shown someone the truth. She shook her head like I was being unreasonable. It was my bachelorette party. That's what those are for. I was just dancing. The guys bought us champagne and were being funny about it. It was like $20 total. It was nothing. You were letting strangers put money in your dress 3 weeks before our wedding. God, you're so uptight. It's called dancing. You're acting like I committed a crime. I looked at her for a long moment. This was the woman I had been planning to spend the rest of my life with. She genuinely did not understand why I was standing in front of her with my jaw clenched, or she understood and simply did not care, which was worse. She cried then. The tears started fast and she told me she loved me, that it was one moment, that I was throwing away 4 years over nothing. Then she said the thing that cut straight through it all. You embarrassed me in front of my grandmother, in front of my whole family. Do you know what everyone is saying about me? And on top of everything, she has completely cut me out of the will. There it was. Not the relationship. Not me. Not what she had done. The will. That was the wound she could not stop pressing. I walked to the front door and held it open. She sat on the couch for another minute, waiting for me to change my mind. When I made it clear I wasn't going to, she grabbed her bag and walked out. You're going to regret this, she said at the door. You'll never find anyone like me again. That was exactly what I was counting on. 2 days after that, her mother called. No greeting, no hello, straight into demands. You need to fix this. She told me bachelorette parties are supposed to be wild and that what happens on a trip away is supposed to stay there. She said I had let my bruised ego burn down a family. I told her I hadn't burned down anything. Her daughter had made choices in a public venue that she knew was being filmed, and those choices had consequences. She told me Ava couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, had been crying for days. I told her I was dealing with my own things, like processing the discovery that the woman I was going to marry had accepted cash from strangers to dance on them 3 weeks before our wedding. She hung up on me. Friday, a letter arrived from a lawyer. Not a lawsuit, just a formal demand. Ava was claiming she was owed reimbursement for various wedding-related costs she had personally paid, including dress alterations, her flights for the bachelorette weekend, and deposits for things she said I had agreed to cover. The total listed was $8,400. I called my friend Greg, who practices law. He laughed for a solid 30 seconds. He told me wedding expenses like this are generally not legally recoverable, especially when the party making the claim was the reason the engagement ended. He told me to ignore the letter entirely. I did. That same weekend, Tiffany texted me from a number I didn't recognize. She had found a way around my block. She said Ava deserved forgiveness, that she had been drunk and barely remembered half the night. I told her that being drunk was not the defense she seemed to think it was. She called me cold and told me I had never deserved Ava anyway, that all her friends had always said Ava was settling for me. I blocked that number too. Sunday, I changed the locks. I should have done it the moment Ava came back from that trip. The landlord was completely understanding when I explained the situation. It cost me $150 and I slept better that night than I had in a week. The first few nights after the collapse had been brutal. I kept waking up in the dark reaching for someone who was no longer there. But somewhere around the fourth or fifth day, I started feeling something I had not expected: relief. The kind that builds quietly at first, then hits you all at once. The more I looked back at the past year, the more things came into focus. The way she would get strangely defensive whenever her phone buzzed around me. The nights she came home from work events smelling like a bar, brushing it off as just drinks with clients. The easy, lingering way she flirted with waitstaff every time we went out, always calling it just being friendly. I had told myself I was being paranoid. I was being observant. 2 weeks after the wedding was supposed to happen, things shifted again. Greg sent a formal legal response to Ava's demand letter. He drafted it at no charge to me and made sure it was thorough and firm. It stated clearly that her claims had no legal merit and that any continued harassment would result in us pursuing a restraining order. That ended the official legal pressure. But it did not end everything else. Haley reached out to me. She was Ava's cousin, one of the bridesmaids who had been on that trip. She came to me with an apology that felt genuine. She said she had tried to stop Ava that night. She had pulled her aside and asked her to settle down, and Ava had dismissed her. She told me it was Tiffany who had been driving the whole thing, filming it, cheering it on, encouraging it. Haley said she had picked up her phone to call me that night and hadn't been able to bring herself to do it. "Why didn't you?" I asked. Honestly, I was scared. When people try to call her out, she gets really mean about it. I know that's not an excuse. It wasn't. But I appreciated that she said it honestly. Then she told me something she had been sitting on since the trip. While they were away, Ava had been talking openly to the group about how lucky she was that the wedding was essentially free because Margaret was covering everything. She had said, according to Haley, that once they were married, she would have it made because I had strong career prospects and she could finally relax. Her words, reportedly. That hit harder than the video. Knowing you were someone's financial plan more than their partner is its own particular kind of wound. Margaret called me again. We spoke for nearly an hour. She apologized one more time and told me she had been watching her granddaughter's behavior for years, hoping she would grow out of it, telling herself it was just immaturity. The video had been the thing that finally made her stop waiting. "I have given that girl everything," she said. Her college education, her first car, her apartment for years after graduation. I have never once seen real gratitude. Just entitlement. She told me she had rewritten her will. Ava had been removed entirely. Haley, the one who had tried to stop things that night, was now the primary beneficiary. Margaret volunteered all of this without me asking. I think she wanted me to know that real consequences had come from what happened. Something else occurred that I had no hand in. The nightclub's video had made its way to other platforms. Someone had posted it on Twitter, and it spread the way things do when they catch a little momentum online. A colleague of Ava's at work recognized her in the clip. It got back to her manager. Pharmaceutical sales is a profession built entirely on professional relationships and credibility. Clients have to trust the person sitting across from them. A video of you grinding on strangers while men tuck cash into your dress does not exactly reinforce that image. Ava was not fired, but she was reassigned to an inside sales position. No more client visits. A significant pay cut came with it. Tiffany texted me from yet another new number and accused me of leaking the video on purpose to destroy Ava professionally. I had not leaked anything. The nightclub had posted the video publicly. I had forwarded it to one person, Margaret. Everything that came after that was the internet doing what it does when content is public and shareable. The consequences were not something I engineered. They were the result of choices Ava made in a public venue that she knew, because the signs were posted throughout the club, was live streaming and recording its footage. The following Tuesday, Ava showed up at my apartment again. The new locks held. She couldn't get in. My neighbor texted me updates throughout the afternoon. She sat outside my door for 2 hours. She was on the phone at various points, crying at others, and at some point she was writing something. When I got home from work that evening, there was a 4-page letter on the floor just inside the door, slipped through the gap at the bottom. I read it. The first page was about how much she loved me and how she was certain we were meant to be together. The second page argued that I had massively overreacted to a harmless misunderstanding and that none of this had needed to happen. The third page catalogued everything she had lost: Margaret's trust, her family's respect, her professional standing, the wedding she had planned, the future she had imagined. The fourth page said that if I chose not to take her back, she would have nothing left and could not be responsible for what she might do. That last part made me stop cold. I called her mother. I kept it brief. Your daughter left me a letter with language suggesting she might hurt herself. I am telling you so you can check on her. This is the last time I will contact your family. Her mother's response was that if anything happened, it would be my fault, that I had done this to her. I hung up, saved the letter, and documented the call. I kept everything in case it was ever needed. Haley reached out the following day. She told me Ava was fine, just being dramatic, and that the family was exhausted and dealing with it. She also said this was not the first time Ava had used the kind of language to pressure someone into giving her what she wanted. A pattern, not a crisis. I felt relief about that, then felt guilty for feeling relief, then felt relieved again. So where did everything land? The ring resale brought back about $4,200. Less than I had hoped for, but enough to cover the personal deposits I had paid out of pocket that weren't coming back regardless. I cleaned the apartment top to bottom. Rearranged the furniture, moved things around, made it feel like my space again instead of a shared one frozen in the past. It helped more than I expected. I started seeing a therapist. Only a handful of sessions in when things finally settled, but it was already doing something useful. She pointed out something I hadn't considered clearly. I hadn't planned any of this. I hadn't schemed or plotted a way to hurt Ava. I saw something true and forwarded it to the person it directly affected. I did not engineer the consequences. I did not manufacture anything. I just did not hide what was real, and everything that followed came from that. She said that was not cruelty. That was honesty. Margaret sent me a card in the mail. A real physical card, the kind people barely send anymore, with a handwritten note inside. She thanked me for having more integrity than most men twice my age and said she would keep me in her prayers. Coming from her, that genuinely meant something. Ava never apologized. Not once. Not in 43 missed calls, not in 89 texts, not in the confrontation in my living room, not in the 4-page letter. Not even a quiet, private message in a weak moment. She blamed me, she blamed the club, she blamed Tiffany, she blamed the algorithm, she blamed anyone within reach. But she never once looked at what she had done and said it was wrong. That, more than any single moment in this entire mess, told me everything I needed to know. 3 weeks ago I was picking up my suit from the tailor and finalizing the seating chart. Now I am single at 29 and figuring out what starting over actually looks like. Some mornings I think about the life I thought I was stepping into and feel the weight of the gap between that and where I am now. But then I come back to the same thought every single time. I found out who she was before I committed the rest of my life to her. That matters. That is the thing I hold on to. She showed me exactly who she was when she believed no one she knew was watching. Margaret deserved to know the truth before she handed over $85,000 for a wedding that was built on something hollow. I have no regrets about what I did. Not one. The nightclub video is still up on their page. Last I checked, it had passed 400,000 views. Some things follow you. That is not something I caused. That is just the world we live in now, where choices made in public spaces leave permanent marks. Her choices. Her marks. I am moving forward. One day at a time, but forward.